Queen Victoria is one of Britain's most famous monarchs, reigning for almost 64 years. Her life was filled with both great strength and determination and profound tragedies. However, the brightest moment in her destiny was her sincere and rare for the royal family love for Prince Albert. Although their union began as a political marriage, it quickly grew into a genuine feeling that affected not only Victoria herself, but the entire country. In this video, we'll explore how their love story changed the British monarchy and left a mark on world history. Victoria's childhood and youth, the path from loneliness to the royal throne. Imagine a girl who, from an early age, is surrounded by luxury and the promise of a great future. A happy life, full of pleasure and freedom, seems to await her. But Queen Victoria's childhood was not like that. Behind the palace doors, she was almost completely controlled, and her world was filled with loneliness and strict rules. Victoria was born into a royal family in 1819, but her life was anything but easy. Her father died when she was not even a year old, and from then on, her mother took complete control of her life. The main goal was to make Victoria a model queen. It would seem that what could be better than a mother's care and palace life? But in reality, it turned out to be strict control and almost complete isolation from the world. Victoria lived according to a strict daily schedule in which there was no room for simple pleasures, such as walks with friends or games. She was always supervised, even sleeping in the same room as her mother, so that she could be supervised at night. Victoria's mother, the Duchess of Kent, together with her counselor, Sir John Conroy, developed a system of upbringing that went down in history as the Kensington system. The essence of this system was to keep Victoria under constant supervision and raise her as a queen who could not be trusted with the slightest freedom. Even simple socializing with other children was forbidden for Victoria unless an adult was around. She could not take walks, could not attend social events, and had virtually no friends. Life was lived between palace walls and textbooks. As a result of this upbringing, Victoria grew up stubborn, but also weak and dependent on the decisions of her mother and counselor. These restrictions affected her and made her suspicious of those around her, for she was taught from childhood that she could not trust anyone but her family. She had only one desire: to get out from under her mother's influence and find freedom. Her diaries are full of notes about how she dreamed of a future in which she would be her own mistress. When Victoria turned 18, the event that changed everything happened. She officially became Queen of Great Britain. And on the first day of her reign, Victoria did something that shocked her entire family. She banned her mother from her meetings and appointments. "Now no one will dare to run my life," the young queen declared. These words came to symbolize her liberation from the Kensington system and everything associated with it. After her accession to the throne, Victoria immediately began to change her lifestyle. For the first time, she felt real freedom and breathed her own breath. She no longer had to follow strict routines and could make her own decisions. However, freedom did not come immediately and completely. Her fear of people and distrust of others remained with her forever. Later, Victoria admitted that it was difficult for her to get close to other people and trust them, because her childhood had left a deep trace. So began a new stage in her life, full of desire for independence and hope for a better life. But the road to true happiness for Victoria was just beginning. Soon she would meet the man who would become her support, counselor, and greatest love. Meet Prince Albert. Can you imagine a queen proposing to her lover on her own? Well, that's exactly what young Queen Victoria did. Her meeting with Prince Albert was fateful, and it changed not only her life but also the monarchy. But how did this meeting, intended as a political move, become the beginning of a great love story? It all began in 1836, when Victoria was just 17 years old. At that time, her family was actively looking for a suitable husband for the young princess. Among the candidates was her cousin, German Prince Albert. The families hoped that their marriage would strengthen the ties between Britain and Germany. From the outset, the meeting was intended to be purely political, a common move for monarchs at the time. But neither Victoria nor Albert expected how their lives would change after this meeting. When Victoria first saw Albert, she was amazed. Her diaries are full of words of admiration. She described him as handsome, intelligent, and kind. He was the complete opposite of the strict and cold environment in which Victoria had grown up. Albert was well-read and interested in science and art. Unlike most of the people around him, he was kind to her and didn't try to manipulate her. The fact that Victoria herself offered Albert her hand and heart was not just unusual, but almost shocking for those times. Usually, the Queen waited to propose, but Victoria broke this stereotype. She simply could not wait for Albert to make up his mind. Her feelings were so strong. She was 20 years old at the time, and despite her royal status, Victoria acted like an ordinary girl in love. They married in 1840, and their relationship quickly became a model for many. It was not just a political union, but the union of two loving hearts. But their story didn't end there. Their marriage became a unique example for royal families. Unlike many monarchs, Victoria and Albert built a relationship based on mutual understanding. It is believed that their marriage became a model for the entire nation. They had 9 children, and the Queen wrote many times in her diaries about how happy she was with her family. Victoria regarded Albert as her equal, which was rare for the time when in royal unions, the husband often played only the role of a political figure. Albert was a huge influence on Victoria, helping her to make decisions and develop as a person. Thanks to him, Victoria became interested in science, the arts, and public affairs, becoming more sensitive to the needs of ordinary people. Their relationship helped Victoria realize that being queen was not only about ruling, but also about serving the people. Thanks to Albert, she became more open-minded and willing to make changes in ruling. This love story was unique to the monarchy. Many believed that royal marriages should be a pure formality. But Victoria and Albert shattered this stereotype by showing that even a queen can be truly happy in marriage. Their union changed the perception of the monarchy in the eyes of the people and showed that love and support are important elements not only in the lives of ordinary people, but also in the life of the Queen. Victoria and Albert not only loved each other, but also formed a unique union in which each inspired the other to do great things. Their love was a true engine of change, both personal and societal. How could a simple affection between two people affect an entire country? After the wedding, Albert immediately took on the role of not only husband, but also Victoria's trusted advisor. He saw how difficult it was for her to cope with the sheer number of responsibilities that her position demanded. Victoria, being a young and inexperienced queen, was sometimes lost in her duties, and Albert decided to help. He developed a daily routine for her that helped her not only save time, but also be more efficient. The schedule included hours for official meetings, receiving visitors, reading official documents, resting, and even time to spend with her family. This innovation allowed Victoria to cope better with her role as queen and to be less tired. Albert did not stop at just personal advice. He realized that the queen needed to think not only about the royal court, but also about her people. Under his influence, Victoria began to take an interest in the situation of ordinary Britons. Albert was an advocate of social reform. For example, he actively promoted ideas about the need to improve working conditions and education for all. He believed that everyone in the country deserved decent living and working conditions, and Victoria supported his ideas. Albert inspired her to make reforms, such as improving working conditions for children, who then often worked in the dangerous conditions of factories and mines. He also pushed for the establishment of schools for the children of workers. These reforms were not immediately popular with the nobility. But Victoria and Albert believed that this was the right way forward for their country. Victoria, who had always been used to listening to the nobility, dared to stand up for the people for the first time with Albert. This was an important moment when her reign became more conscious and independent. One of the prime examples of how their alliance affected society was the Great Exhibition Hall of London, or the 1851 World's Fair, which Albert initiated. This grand project allowed Britain to showcase its achievements in science, technology, and art to the world. The exhibition symbolized not only the power of the empire, but also the desire for development and progress. Victoria supported her husband's project and participated in the preparation of the exhibition, which attracted more than 6 million visitors. This project made the British proud of their country and saw the light of day thanks to Victoria's support and her love for Albert. Victoria and Albert's union became an example for royal dynasties. Unlike many royal couples of the time who lived more as allies for political calculations, Victoria and Albert showed that it was not only titles that mattered in marriage, but also personal qualities such as support and mutual respect. Albert taught Victoria to listen to her own feelings, and she empowered him to not just be a husband, but to influence the country's decisions. Their union was more than a love story. It was the foundation of a new era where the monarchy could serve the people, not just rule them. The loss that broke Victoria. In 1861, when Albert was only 42 years old, he suddenly fell ill. His condition deteriorated rapidly and he died a few days later. For Victoria, this loss became unbearable. She could not believe that the man who had been her support, her counselor, and her love was no longer with her. Despair and a sense of emptiness gripped her so strongly that she literally stopped seeing meaning in life. Victoria went into deep mourning that did not end until her death. Immediately after Albert's death, the Queen did something that shocked everyone. She ordered her servants to prepare his room daily as if he were still alive. His bed was to remain made, his clothes were to be neatly hung, and his razors were to be in their proper place. Every day, clean water was brought to his room, as if Albert might be about to return to use it. This custom continued for the rest of Victoria's life and became a symbol of her deep love and sorrow. The Queen never again removed the mourning black dress. For nearly 40 years, until her death, she wore only black. It was her symbol of remembrance and loyalty to Albert. Victoria no longer attended public events, took part in social life, or even avoided meeting people in person. The Queen, who had once been full of energy and activity, was now almost completely isolated from society. The British began to call her the Widow in Black, and even began to criticize her for ceasing to perform her duties. But Victoria paid no attention to this. Her heart was broken, and no amount of entreaties could bring her back to her old life. The loss of Albert also had a profound effect on politics and government. In the years after his death, Victoria relied more and more on her advisors and ministers, as she herself almost ceased to be involved in the affairs of the country. Many felt that this made her weaker as a ruler, but the Queen was unwilling to change her mourning lifestyle for the sake of political affairs. Her main concern now was to keep Albert's memory alive. She erected several monuments in his honor, including the famous Royal Albert Hall in London. It became a way for her to show everyone that Albert would forever be a part of her life and Britain's history. This deep attachment to the memory of Albert is an unusual example of love and mourning that goes against the traditions of the royal family, because usually monarchs have to adapt quickly to new circumstances and put the rule of the country first. But for Victoria, her own feelings were more important than public opinion and political duties. She put her love for Albert above all else. The legacy of their love. When Victoria and Albert married, monarchs in Europe rarely chose each other for love. Kings and queens married to strengthen their alliance with other countries. But Victoria and Albert shattered that stereotype. Their marriage became a model of a true family union rather than a political one. People saw that the Queen was truly happy with Albert, and this genuine affection inspired others. For the first time in the eyes of the common people, the monarchy began to seem like something close and understandable. People could identify with the rulers because Victoria and Albert lived as simple spouses, respecting and supporting each other. Their family became a symbol of love and devotion, something that every human being could understand. The influence of their union extended far beyond the palace. Victoria and Albert sought to improve the lives of ordinary people because they understood that the royal family should serve the people. Under their influence, projects devoted to art, science, and education began to appear in the country. After Albert's death, Victoria did her best to keep his memory alive. In 1871, she opened the Royal Albert Hall in London, a concert hall named in his honor. This hall came to symbolize their love and their shared dream of developing the arts. She also erected many monuments so that every Briton would remember the contribution Albert had made. This was unusual for monarchs of the time. Usually rulers only erected monuments in their honor, but Victoria wanted the people to know and love Albert as she did. Victoria's personal legacy is also noteworthy. After her death, a small plaster figurine of Albert was found in her hands, which she had kept all her life. This touching fact shows how strong her love was. Victoria didn't just wear mourning for Albert. She kept his image in her heart every day and even after he was gone. Victoria and Albert left a legacy that changed the way the monarchy was viewed. They made the royal family closer to the people and made the monarchy more human. Before their reign, the British monarchy was something out of reach, closed to ordinary people. But the love of Victoria and Albert showed that even rulers can live like ordinary families, caring for each other and serving their people. Even decades after Victoria and Albert's death, their love remains one of the most famous examples of devotion.